Okay. Thank you everybody for joining in. My name is Prashant. I'm part of the marketing team at HubSpot. Thanks for taking time out to join in one of our webinars. So we are co-hosting this webinar with Knowlarity. Knowlarity is our technology partner, and they've recently launched an integration with HubSpot. So I'm really happy to have Knowlarity co-host this webinar along with us. We've got an interesting topic on our hands today. It's to help sales leaders close enterprise deals in the remote world. As you all know, a lot has happened in the last 6 months. Almost every function in a company has gotten affected. The way they work has changed. A lot of you listening to this webinar are listening it from home or in a remote place. Things used to be a lot different 6 months before. So every function has changed the way it used to function. And sales is a pretty important function because it brings business to every organization, and the way they prospect and close deals has changed a lot over the last 6 months. So we've got some really good speakers who've been there and done that to come and talk about how they've adapted to this new environment and how they are prospecting and closing deals in the remote world. So before we begin, just a quick Zoom webinar basics. So we've closed down the chat because, as I told you, it will not be a great experience for people on mobile. It'll be really distracting. If you have any specific questions, use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen to type in your questions. We will answer some of these questions live, and we'll also take some of the questions at the end of the webinar with our speakers. If you're facing some audio issues, just check your internet connection or your audio settings in Zoom. We've just confirmed that everybody on the call can hear. So if you're not able to hear, it's probably your internet connection or your audio settings. So the agenda for today is pretty simple. So we've got like specific sections for where our speakers are going to kind of walk you through how to adapt yourself to remote sales. So we'll begin with how to transition from field sales to remote sales, like what has changed and how you can adapt. And then we will see how you can run an enterprise sales process remotely. Enterprise sales used to be on the field, meeting customers, building relationships. It's changed. So we're going to tell you how you can still close deals in the remote world. As behavioral qualities are important, online tools are also important to manage your remote sales. So we're going to talk about what are some of the must-have sales tools to make you successful. This is specifically for sales leaders who are managing like large sales teams. What tools do you need to use to measure and manage your remote sales team, and how do you measure them? Like, what are the metrics that you measure? And finally, we will talk. We'll give some final thoughts from our speakers, and then we'll go into the Q&A section. So with this, I'll welcome our speakers for the day. We've got two, what I call like veteran sales leaders who've been there and done that. We have Adarsh from HubSpot. He is the country director for India, and he's been running enterprise deals in pretty large multinational companies like Salesforce, Oracle, and we have Jaideep, who's the chief sales officer from Knowlarity, who's also a buddy of Adarsh, which was surprising for me as well when I first learned it. They've been working together at Salesforce, and Jaideep has also worked in really large enterprise companies like Microsoft, Salesforce, and he's currently at Knowlarity leading their sales team of 50 plus employees. So he's going to be there, and he's also been there and done that. So I'm really looking forward to hearing what they have and what they can share. And I hope you really find their insights useful. So with this, I hand over and welcome Jay and Adi to kind of kickstart this presentation.
Thank you, Prashant. I think that introduction kind of made me and Jay feel a bit old, but we will stride that part, right, Jay?
Exactly, Adi. They don't know that you're 140 years old, so I think that's.
But it's very exciting, very exciting. And thanks, Prashant, for giving us the segue. And welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
You and your team to HubSpot's family, and it's an amazing partnership that both of our organizations have done. So I'm very keen to get started. I know a lot of folks have joined in, so let's get dive straight into the uh, topic. Do you want to help us with your thoughts around how
Yes.
you're seeing the transition happen, Jay, in front of your own eyes,
No,
given the
absolutely.
current situation?
So others and folks here on the call, firstly, good afternoon to all of you. Hopefully everybody is well and safe, including your families. So it's been a tumultuous 6 months. It started off as felt like a slight paid holiday kind of a thing for 2 weeks. And it has become almost a 6 months of cruel blood being spent at home, not on the field as much. But things have obviously, from the sales guys who've been carrying the bag, who've been the breadwinners for organizations, the roles have become even more important because there have been some challenges, not some, but varied on all fronts, which is there. So clearly, so since, of course, in my case, I come from a very, very traditional sales background, used to present in front of a bunch of folks, being there, trying to gauge feedback, using all the stuff I learned around NLP and body language and facial recognition, mirroring your presentation or your get up to the person that you were talking to. So we were all kind of trained on all that stuff which was there. And now, and always used to some immediate straight feedback, gauging attention, also kind of making some fancy remarks around if somebody was losing attention to you. And now you're completely away from that particular position. The other piece, which always used to be a small arsenal that we used to have, you can broadly call it a different kind of stalking in a way of customers, where you
We
would
used to
have,
call it gate crashing, isn't it?
yeah. And don't you have some cases against you for that, Addy?
Not it, not it. Thankfully, not it.
Yeah, so classic case, calling a customer that, sir, I'm in the vicinity. I just wanted to say hi or have a smoke with you. While these were obviously not necessarily surprise visits. So, of course, that kind of goes out of the window because you don't really have that opportunity. But now everything's virtual. You have different set of people. You have different perspectives. You have different thoughts. You can't really get a way to kind of get across to them immediately. So it's a new world which all of us have kind of got used to, and still getting used to. But I guess that's the journey that we are here, and in this webinar we would make our best attempts to actually make you understand and probably in some way or the other help you. So that brings us to some very key questions which we'll try to answer in this session that we have. One is, how do we build relationships? Because fundamental to any enterprise, or if I just remove any enterprise, I mean any sort of sale, because ultimately it is an establishment or the starting of a relationship that you have, whether it is commercial or whether it is something that you leverage in the years to come, is something which you have to build over remote, through a video, through a telephone, and a customer who may want to meet you but can't meet you. Some just won't meet you. So you have all those challenges your way. The other piece that you obviously need to understand, or and maybe others, you can just go to the next slide, is how do you gauge that feedback? How do you get attention? How do you know the other person at the end is actually interested?
Right.
More often than not, like here, Addy is always very encouraging to me, and he's always nodding his head and saying, "Oh, damn, good job done." But you don't really have those generous feedbacks coming your way all the time. So how do you actually go about overcoming some of those challenges? And those are real life challenges, right? It doesn't change. And obviously, sales guys are always have the tougher end of the stick, or the what I mean. I probably got this pronoun completely wrong, but that's how it is. So let's get to, what do we actually view of remote enterprise sales? What we believe, and this is some of our personal as well as our experience that we have. And of course, I've had the opportunity to lean on the experience of my team, which obviously shares from time to time what the challenges that they have. But let's get these misconceptions out of the window so that we can actually start off with an open mind as far as what remote sales is all about. So does productivity decline? In a way, not, because suddenly you have more time on yourself, you have more things that you can do. Can you build trust? Good question. Sometimes at the initial part of the, in fact, frankly, end of March, we were all planning that as soon as the lockdown gets over, the first thing we'll do is we'll go and meet all our customers and just
True.
check with them how they're doing.
Correct.
Which
That, that
frankly, which
I
is
remember that used to be our forecast conversations also with
yes,
the team saying,
yes,
what will you
yeah,
do to build the pipe? We're just waiting, Modi ji, to remove the lockdown, and then we've got our meetings set up. That means you are on honeymoon till the lockdown over, right? Yeah, I agree.
correct. Yes, and in fact, others, if you recall from our earlier days in even Salesforce, of course, you were running a kind of a pan India role, the only strategic account manager that you were kind of running pieces, which was there. You were still, I think, doing a lot of telecalling because you were based out of Bangalore, handling
Yeah.
customers in Delhi and Mumbai. So
Yep.
how is that? I mean, how did he? Does that, is this
So,
different or is it similar? What does it do you think
I think
about?
those days, the times and the situations would make you work in a way that you can do justice to your role. When
Hmm.
you're handling, let's say, 30 big ticket deals across the country, you're just
Hmm.
one person, and you can't obviously be meeting everybody all the time. So
Yeah.
the blessing for a sales guy that time was the incredible software tools that we used to have, the
Hmm.
CRM or ability to manage meetings. But the switch was not from the customer side at that time, right? Today
Hmm.
everybody is remote,
Yes.
which is actually a good thing, because that encourages you to really set up online meetings compared to the old days where
Yeah.
you were called in, and for any stage to move forward you had to do a meeting. And
Hmm.
I can't recollect me closing any deal without having met somebody,
Hmm.
office hours, non-office hours. Oh, the things that we have to go through to get one
Yeah.
enterprise deals. Those who have been there, you must be smiling. I can't see you, but yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And in fact, this one, I don't have a data point around that, but I've seen most of the meeting requests being accepted. Uh,
Yeah, yeah,
I mean, almost close to, I think maybe 100%.
yeah.
Uh, Customers ready to kind of have that chat, which frankly which is a fact that maybe trust is, I mean, they don't really distrust you. They may not
Yeah.
necessarily trust you, but you have an opportunity to win their trust.
And we ran a report recently with Prashant in HubSpot, and we kind of figured out a lot conversations are happening compared to earlier months over
Yeah.
the online digital way, right? Sales guys are sending maximum emails, marketing emails are going, customers are consuming content very highly.
Hmm.
Now the only thing that's missing is the conversions, and I think there is a bit of gap when it comes to adopting into really doing 100% on remote sales. And
Hmm.
I think this webinar is focused on ensuring we continue doing what we're doing, and we adopt some new things and new styles so that you can efficiently close large deals.
Sure.
Would that be a good segue, Jay, for us to move forward? And let's
Yes,
get into the
absolutely.
enterprise
Yes.
sales
Yes.
process. So,
Yes,
uh,
please.
so maybe at the end of this session, if between me and Jay, if all of you have to carry something back to your offices and discuss with your teams, that would be probably four major things. And then let's just dive into that and see
Hmm.
what we are talking about in the essentials of doing remote enterprise deals. The prelude to this obviously is, I know many of you are from different industries. I know my friends from hospitality, manufacturing, healthcare, all of you have joined in. And this is not specific to one kind of a vertical or an industry. This is more of fundamentals of enterprise sales deal. Little bit of tweaking and changing do happen, but end of the day, when you're selling a huge deal, lot of things are common across industries. It's always a group buy, it's always a longer sales cycle, it's a lot of stakeholders involvement, goals, smaller goals and larger goals are to be there, a strategy has to be written. All these are same for anybody. You could be representing a hotel chain, you could be representing a pharma company, it doesn't matter. But I'm looking forward to the Q&As if there is anything specific we can address, which we wouldn't have. Back to the 4 pillars. Number 1, preparation. Sourcing and research is fundamental to any B2B sales that you do. Irrespective of the deal size, if you do not prep well, you are not going to structure your pipeline very strongly. That's the fundamental. Leverage time. I've noticed over my 2 decades, Jay, to be honest with you, maybe 10 to 15% of the reps that I have seen really stress and spend more time doing this activity. Everybody wants to jump in and do the execution, but not many sit and think about it. I think if you're an enterprise sales manager or a large deal manager or a key account manager as a role, then the first few weeks of your entire year should be spent on this. This is a must. You should understand what does a large deal means, what kind of good fit companies are to be engaged, how do you arrive at good fit companies, who are the people, what are the personas, how does the organization look like, where do they get their finance, are they financially strong, stuff like that. And only then you filter out the entire list of accounts to the focus target accounts. That's number 1, and we'll dwell into it in
And
detail after.
this I'd like to add a point here, Adi.
Yeah.
See, there in this entire pandemic situation, there was obviously a sudden change which happened because a lot of companies suddenly who are not necessarily your target segments became your target segments.
Correct.
Because they were suddenly looking at expecting a much faster or a quicker, or for that matter, they became more open to accepting solutions. Like, we are cloud based, so a lot of our customers were not too fond of cloud, and that's where they kind of opened up. So you have those kind of things which obviously a good research or the fact that you're aware of what is happening in the market makes a difference.
Absolutely. I'll tell you a funny thing in that. EduTech. EduTech was a more conservative, uh, and their target addressable market was localized, area-wise, city-wise, or zonal-wise.
Yeah.
And suddenly, by having forced down to be into the remote world, their target addressable market opened up.
Yes.
Every single EduTech that I spoke since March are talking on the same thing, that we want to go global. We want to grow faster, go brighter. So that's an example. So unless you are aware of what's happening, macro, and if you, let's say you're a telecom um, industry account manager, right? Your target accounts are all telecom. You should know what's happening in the telecom industry, what's really the large guys are buying for, what's the future, where are the problems that you can solve, stuff like that.
Sure.
Thanks, Jay, for that. Let's jump into the second bucket that we'll be discussing. We are going to talk about internal and external collaboration. Internal, when I say enterprise sales deal is never done alone. There is no super sales rep. Sales reps are not born supermen. It's a team effort. The awareness of that should be there from day one. And the team really rallies around a leader. And in this case, sales rep is not the leader. The account plan is a leader. And we will talk about it in a while. From an external point of view, again, it's not a single person's purchase. Maybe CEO makes a decision, but generally to get to the CEO's table, to get to that board meeting, you would have probably walked 100 times into the offices of your CSO, CMO, CFO, CIOs, and the data officers, everybody, legal, right? The cyber security, whatever. Everybody has a role to play in this large, because for you, it's just a deal. For them, it's a growth story. It's an essential business backbone that they're deciding. So everybody who's a CXO will be involved, and you should be ready how to navigate, especially during online, where you can't just, like Jay said, go up and throw a surprise with saying, I was there, can we catch up? What are your goals? That doesn't happen anymore. You need to be structured, and we'll talk about it. The third is more on the execution front, and that is really a sole responsibility of the core team that runs these deals. And another solid tool that you should be using is a mutually agreed compelling close plans. And a close plan is generally signed off between both buyer and seller, and we'll talk about it. I have some examples to share. The last one is personal skills enablement. And we need to be really aware and conscious about how this new normal is going to stay as the normal forever. I think it's no longer to be called new normal that you sell via digital channels. So your confidence, your ability to over communicate, your ability to communicate on an omni-channel way is really key, and we'll talk about that. So jumping into the first poll, Jay, pitch in anytime you want, please. But I think these are the core elements that we want our audience to take home today. One, which I spoke about, was research and sourcing. You need to define your target accounts, the personas, the behavior personas, the existence personas. What are they currently going through? What problems is that industry facing, that vertical facing, that company is facing? Where are they in the ladder? How are they faring with the competition? Read their balance sheets, get to know their financial health, do all that. That is a must. If you have 2 deals that you have to close or handful of deals that you have to close, you have the time to do the homework. Do not run away from that. And there is a lot of data available these days. Most of the listed companies have their financials out in the open. You can download and read their balance sheets. There are a lot of conversations that happen. The CXOs give interviews. There is funding data. There is a lot of investor relations data. Read them to get to know your target account, number one. Then you get into a white spacing mode. Sometimes they would have had some previous relationship with your company. You would have sold in silos. You need to be aware of the current existing landscape of an account, and I'll show you an example of that. Then comes the account based marketing. That is when you identify people who are going to be critical for you in the sales. If there are 10 CXOs and maybe 5 are involved, you need to map them. It's a no excuse not to map all the CXOs. If you have to avoid a surprise during negotiation, if you have to avoid a shocker in terms of many players involved in a deal, that is the only way out, where you map everybody from the beginning and follow this. You're now in online world. You can follow people. You can see the trigger events. You can see who's quit, who's come and joined. Check who's the new hire they have done. Are they hiring more people? Which department is hiring? What is happening? That is all there, and this is part of your research. Then once you decide, you lead via workflows. You need the systems to work for you. Have this ABS approach. Let your CRM be able to send out sequences, workflows, so that you can map into these separate functionalities. What a CFO cares primarily is different from what a chief sales officer cares. So your questions and your interactions with the CFO differs big time from somebody who's running a marketing department, or somebody who's a supply chain head, or somebody who's a CDO or a CIO. So personalized nurturing and tools like CRMs, workflows, sequences will help. And like I said, the real leader here, the Bible of the game, is account plan. What does it mean? This is just an example. What does an account plan should have? In times of executing everything remote, this becomes a framework for all your enterprise account deals. It will clearly articulate in as many explicit words as possible the customer's landscape, the white spacing that's there, the strategy that you're adopting, what goals are they chasing, what problems are they chasing, are they capable to pay? Can they afford your solution? Are there any past relationship? Are there any ongoing relationships? Are there any existing support issues? All that will come into this. And then your future. What are you chasing? What is the plan for the next 2 quarters? What are you doing in the next financial year with this account? Are you going to map X million dollars of revenue? You mention all that. When you do that, it becomes a guiding document. And most times, Jay, I've seen people who do this at in the middle of it, they say, sir, I think this account is something that we shouldn't chase now, because they get to know. And disqualifying early an account saves whole lot of energy. Imagine you chasing a wrong account for 6 months in your 1 year of career, and then at the end you come to know, oh, I didn't know this. They can't pay me money. That is something that you avoid at the beginning. So you choose your handful of accounts who are qualified from your side and ticks all the boxes. Ensure enough guardrails. There should be guardrails which help you not to have issues in the end. Sorry, Jay, good.
Yeah, just to add here, Adi, see, in these times, especially based on the larger experience which is there, we I think all of us, I think everybody who's there on this webinar, who's as part of sales or whoever is in this space broadly, all of us have also got kind of so there's been a state of panic also, right? Whatever comes to you, just speak to them, work through it. What else can you do? But not realizing that somewhere we are compromising on the basics, which basic, as you mentioned, being able to understand the business well, the capability of the customer. I mean, your classic band criteria, right? The
Correct.
budget,
Correct.
authority, need, timeline. The
Correct.
good part is the timelines may be shortened, but I mean, the budget and need needs to be further qualified. So do that. I think what the point here is that don't just skip those conversations. There are people also who are not really sure about the kind of product solutioning ability to kind of deploy also, and uh, it's difficult on the customer side. So you got to actually help the customer also arrive at the ability to conclude with you. So that's the other
Correct.
part which becomes very important.
Totally agree. And this is another example of how
Yeah.
you do white spacing. So you need to know if you already have some existing relationships,
Mhm.
where is it green, what has been bought, who can influence Zoom, etc. So only when you have this, will you be able to really do a very thought through account plan.
Mhm.
Prashant, on a
Mhm.
side note, keep us informed on the time that we're spending. We do have a lot to cover. So you can.
And just to add here, Andy, in fact, this morning only I had a call which was organized by one of our senior sales reps. He's been following one of the execs who's been moving from various organizations, and they were having, the good part was he was across, so he has a list of his CXOs and senior managers who moved across. At times there are, I mean, we've got into conversations where I've actually had a not too pleasant conversation with some of them by saying that why are we wasting time talking to them if they are not, don't have these particular pieces. But there is also a bit of a hit and trial there. So I won't say that everything can be really be scientific. But if you
Yep.
have a framework in place, at least you know that if you just follow the framework, the chances of success is in
Much,
excess
much
of
higher.
80% for sure. Yes.
Yep. And I think one of the things you need to really focus as an enterprise sales leader is if your guys or if your reps have enough data that
Hmm.
is there for the account. So you need to leverage any tool that's possible or set up a little business development team, have enough data enrichment done so that they know, like Jay said, the CXO details, etc. And then the onus is on us to just replicate what we used to do on the field to be online. You can schedule your meetings online. You need to be a little bit more structured, yes, agree, but you can have your own internal team meetings, have the account plan dictate, let all the team members, your pre-sales, your sales engineers, your solutions architects, in other industries, it could be, let's say, the executive sponsors, you have to bring all of them agreeing and be on consensus in the way you're approaching this account and what you're going to close at the end. Now, your assessment calls, your demos, your trials, your pilots can all be scheduled and conducted over the web now.
Yeah.
Gone are the days when you go to a customer's place and sit and do the POCs forever. There is a tool for everything. There is enough collaboration tools. The telephony systems are amazing these days. Jay is representing one such company, right? The global leaders in that. And I think it is a wrong excuse to give that because I am not in person available, I am unable to coordinate the efforts. Wrong. That is not acceptable anymore. You
Yeah.
can do every bit of your online or offline work now online. One of the things that is critical in enterprise sales deals is to really map the accounts and identify who are your really influencers, decision makers, and naysayers. Because there are a lot of people who probably don't understand your product or don't like you. You never know. But you need to really ensure you engage with all of them and never leave anything, any shocks or surprises to come in the end. You need to map the entire account. Good, bad, ugly doesn't matter. The third
And
bucket,
do it
yeah,
early in the sales cycle, because it's important that you know the, if you have any naysayers, you should know them. I mean, you can't really, there may be limited possibility for you to convert them into your champions, but at least you can be aware that they have these particular questions, and also try to understand their perspective of why are they naysayers. I mean, why do they hate you or prefer the other product for that matter, which is there. I'm sure everybody has their logic, and we should learn to understand and appreciate that.
I can see Prashant lifting his hands. I think we are running short of time. So let's speed up on the third bucket, which is our execution and the most critical. And I think we've spoken enough about the account plan. Account plan should ideally map and complement our ABM and ABS. ABS is account-based selling motion, where you identify your target accounts, identify the 5 CXOs that you need, personalized content goes to them, and then you understand their goals and then draw out a strategy so that everybody is in sync. And when the time comes, when that big board meeting happens for the final, you will have voice from the bottom, from the operational layer, from managerial layer, saying that they will go with you. And all this will happen only if you have that consultative advisory role. Don't go and sell your product at the first instance. One of the biggest mistakes, and you wish your competition does that, because automatically customers will turn towards you. If you're understanding their problems and trying to solve that, that's the only real credible, trustworthy thing that you're doing to your customers. Just because you have a plethora of products and services, do not try and sell. Let your prospects really explain. Use your active listening. And God has given 2 ears and 1 mouth. The reason is you listen double of what you speak, right? So listen to that and try and ensure you're only retrospecting your customers' problems and helping them to navigate. Once you do that, you're on that side of the fence. You're their trustworthy advisor, and they will always refer to you. A lot of customers, Jay, remember, they would reach us out and say, I'm trying to buy something which is nothing related to software, and they would ask your advice. Just because they know you are speaking truth and you have the knowledge to say what you're saying, and you don't say something that you don't know. And that's the
Absolutely.
ultimate.
And in fact, if you can reach that stage of a trusted advisor with your customer, then more than what, 80% of your sale is done. And rest comes down to obviously the checking the product fitment and all those, which is there. And as you rightly said, if you're a problem solver for the customer, they're going to love you. If you're not, then especially the good part is now it's no more that you can just avoid a call. You can just leave the meeting and go away.
True. I keep telling my enterprise sales guys, I come from South India, right? There is, and most of us in India, we have this habit of when you go to a relative's house, you carry something sweet or something namkeen, right? You go there. That's a culture built in with us. Treat every next meeting of yours as something where you're visiting them, and carry a bit of advice, a bit of knowledge, a bit of solution, or something related to their industry that they don't know. You did the study and share that. That goes a long way in establishing trust and credibility. You have the online world. Google knows everything. Just do some homework, pick up something. If you're going to an automotive sector, pick up the trends that's happening in Japan or North America. Figure out what's happening with Tesla. Share that. Really share that. That'll really help. I'm speeding it up. We spoke about sales strategy led close plan, but the last thing I want to share is when you do a close plan is a semi-formal agreement between your prospect and yourself at the beginning of the enterprise engagement. Engagements can run into months, weeks, depending on the deal size. But once you have this prima facie customer is bought into the process, then you're good. As sales leaders, if those who are there in this call, if there is no signed close plan, never take that deal into your forecasting. You will have a surprise or a shock at the end. Trust me on that, 100% guaranteed. Have a close plan. Your chances of converting as expected, your forecast accuracy will be brilliant. The components of close plan generally is you identify what's the value that you're bringing because of your tool, product, service. Then you have your durations, the milestones, the owners for that, and the activities around. Simple. Nothing big, plain English, but something very articulated and co-signed will get you the mind share from the customer. And this close plan can be repeated with multiple departments if you're choosing many goals within the organization, or it can be driven down from the CEO. saying, yes, I agree. I am willing to give you $1 million if these things happen, and your solution is going to give me 10x revenue.
Well said, Adi. In
The
fact, this is
last, sorry,
something
Jay.
which I guess we, even with our experience, kind of in our eagerness to kind of forecast or project, or the optimist in all of us kind of tends to ignore this basic piece. But what, in fact, the closed plans, what also it does is that it, from a customer standpoint, gets a lot of ownership in them. And the best thing that I've seen in these last 6 months is if you have a closed plan, the conversion is, it's, you're there. There is, unless there's something which, I mean, another COVID kind of a scenario, there's not really a way the customer is going to back off. And these could be even simple. So of course, what Addy showed was fairly elaborate and of course, in fact, fairly exhaustive also. But at the same time, if you could just simple email saying that, sir, if I do this, you will do this, and we have this timeline documented, and in case there are any further questions, these are the key people to connect with. Simple. It could be an email, and and you just ask the guy to give an okay, so that at least they also feel owner or equally owners of it. And for them, it's not just they're buying from you, you're actually solving that problem. So that piece should never go away from it. So please ensure that you kind of continue to emphasize on that particular aspect.
That leaves us a segue into the last bucket that I wanted all of you to think through. If you're the person who's on the front lines of the war here on the enterprise sales, and this transition from offline to remote is affecting you, then you can probably look inwards and fix some of the gaps. One of the biggest gaps that we see in orthodox way of selling and the new normal that we are seeing in front of us is being able to effectively communicate online. Like, it doesn't matter where you are, how you are, on which channel, as long as you have content within you, you come across very confident and very, very solid, and people listen. After a while, how you look is forgotten, where you're based out of is forgotten, your backdrop is forgotten, doesn't matter what it is. People will listen only to the content that you're giving, so that really resonates with them. So have that ability to communicate over online channels very confidently, and focus on being self-confident in all avatars that's possible. You got to leverage a lot on the tools that are available at your disposal. Life has become easy. Contrary to how me and Jay started 2 decades plus ago, life is much easier. We remember doing calls from morning 8 till night 9, and you have to travel from one city to another in those old bikes, and you have to do all that. That's no longer there. You can leverage that time. There is so much of time saved. Use that for your research, right? You can build relationship in the new world now. Online relationships, literally easy. LinkedIn Navigator, connect through common circles, impactful conversations. Don't overdo, but do over communicate. Always over communicate, because there is always assumptions that are done when you are subtle in your messages online. That's the big difference. It's okay if you send an email. It's okay you copy the same message in maybe Slack or in WhatsApp, however you're communicating. It's fine to do our communication, because you are not in person. You're not having that coffee. You're not having that drink in the evening. So it's important to over communicate across the channels. Have your close plans clear. It helps in the negotiations. Now, one of the topics that Jay and me are very passionate is, it's no longer a hit and run business, no matter which industry you come from. A sales guy is no longer responsible for generating and closing the contract. The brand experience continues beyond the contract sign. So you need to ensure your post-sales activities, the support, the onboarding, the center of excellence, everything is taken care of, and you're there for a long time. And the only way that is always successful is if you've planned it well from beginning. You know the goals, you know the problems you're solving. We can probably skip a little bit and be faster here, so that we give more time Q&A here, Jay. But I wanted to highlight some of the data points. Jay, you want to pick this up?
Yeah, I guess the fact is that there are so many tools available, and of course, as sales leaders as well as sales reps, you've got to be a bit conscious also. Too much also can be harmful. But the fact remains is sales tools or the kind of technology which is available, whether it is video, telephony, CRMs, everything is here to stay and actually helping all of us get better. Who would have thought that you could handle 15,000 accounts remotely over your desktop, figuring out who are the top 25 customers and who are the key players in that, what are the opportunities open, what are the tasks and activities which is there. The other piece which I personally am face a bit of a challenge is that we have 55 plus. In fact, we're growing extensively in terms of sales organization, and how do you kind of manage the productivity of those people? So here the data points are fairly evident. If somebody can 25 or a quarter of all the sales leaders are able to say that we are going to be able to gain because of some sales tools, speaks a lot for itself.
True. Well said. I think a tool like CRM, which has ability to help you with ABM and ABS, the ability to follow a account plan, ability to have teams around, really helps you, because you don't have to waste so much time making it from the scratch, and your execution, your motion of engaging with customers, your activities, your notes, your emails, everything is documented so that the teams can really not bother you saying, hey, what's happening in this? Where are we in this? You don't have to. I keep telling my team, you can keep the monkey off your back if you are updating your CRM. And the monkey in that case is generally me. I'm their manager. So I don't have to go and ask them what's happening in this deal, right? If it's there on the CRM.
Yeah, and don't use the CRM as a system of record. It's there to help you sell. Yeah. It's not there to just, nobody is looking to track you. Companies would be wasting their money if they are buying a CRM to track you. They want you to sell more. And that's the intention. So, and you have to use the CRM to help you also. So it's a two-way street all the time.
Correct. I agree. I think there are enough and more collaboration tools. There is email management. We don't have to talk about it. I love some of the LinkedIn Sales Navigator features that you get. You should really use them. It helps build a lot of network. Cloud telephony, Jay, I shouldn't be talking about it. You should be talking.
You should be talking about, because I intend to sell that to you more.
Yeah, totally.
Interesting thing is, you have now tools available. So if you have remote teams, you are a sales organization looking to kind of manage a set of people who are actually selling on the phone. Now you have these tools which allow you to actually reach out to as many people as possible, track the productivity of your rep, ensure that the customer experience. So it's all there. The technology is there for you to kind of move forward.
True.
And finally, I guess for all of us, this is our favorite, right, Addy? Whenever it's always nice to see somebody on the other side of the whatever screen, and video does that for you. And it's very, very important. And I'm sure this data point is understated. I'm sure most or all of the deals are being won purely because of the fact that you are able to make that human connect. And if you recall the first slide of our presentation, this is the only tool that which really brings in that human aspect which is there.
I think we kind of covered it for the time that we have. We can probably speak half a day on this. But one last piece on the reporting to check the health of the business model that you're chasing, the weighted average pipelines and the velocity and the activities, the key indicators, all this, a proper reporting tool will help. Unless you have something like this, then you wouldn't know where you are in that quest to close big deals. Final thought, Jay, I think we can wrap it up. We've been talking about the same thing, but I think this message has to go out, right? People buy from people, and this is your best way to express and let the other side people realize and see who you are. And what was the data point? 78% of deals that had meetings with video on close, compared to the 38% which close when it's off. So if you're a sales guy, I don't have to say anything more on this. We spoke about this. So I think in summary, Jay, times have changed, but it's a myth that you can't close large deals via remote. You need to understand the sensitivities. There is a big change in the new normal, which is going to stay with us for life. And I think those long time slow moving, snail paced enterprise deals are getting shorter, quicker. And I think you need to be sensitive towards this and adopt yourself. Jay, your thought? Final thought?
Absolutely. We in sometime in April we closed with a very large bank in flat 3 days. I couldn't really believe my we
Yep.
attributed to luck. Somebody said that I pray like 5 times a day, so therefore we got it. Or for that matter, and when I say close means we actually got a purchase order. So you imagine that a customer that large being able to kind of, an elephant was dancing in front of you and you had
Yeah.
to be able to kind of take advantage of
Yep.
that opportunity and make the most out of it. So from an enterprise rep perspective, your normal sales cycle data points which say 90 days, 120 days, I think it's there's no such benchmark anymore. Just
Yeah.
go for it. It's important that you match the pace of your customer and probably better it also.